So today we're going to be talking about working as a business analyst, but working with Excel. What do I see as challenges that BAs often have when they're working with Excel? I find that new BAs especially are too simplistic in how they do the Excel. It seems like they just have maybe a title at the top of the page, then they have some columns, and then they have some rows, right? And everything needs to fit in there. But sometimes that's not enough, right? Sometimes you have to know how to format it to show the right information. Sometimes I find that something that could be fitted on one sheet, BAs are making it over 3 or 4 sheets because they don't know how to structure it properly. They don't know when to merge a cell to cover multiple things, and when to break it out, when to use the border lines to differentiate between different things. So it's the formatting I find to be one of the most challenging things that BAs I've encountered. New BAs don't know how to do. So not knowing what document to create. So you're in a project and they're talking about something and people are, having lots of back and forth. And you as a BA can create clarity by knowing what it is that you need to do. But sometimes the BA don't even know what document to create because they're looking at what they've been learning in school, which says, okay, I can create user stories, I can create BRDs, I can create some standardized document, right? And you can't think of one that would apply to your situation, so you don't create anything. When you had Excel all along, just go create something in Excel, and that's where you're going to log it, right? So they always think they need to create something formal when you could just create whatever works for the project. You don't have to stick to whatever the book says or whatever the book says, right? So not knowing how to format the document for the kind of data. So sometimes, even when you don't know what document to create, okay, I'm going to create an Excel sheet. How do you put all this complex stuff together? Let's say you want to track how many customers are purchasing a particular product over a particular time. And there are many products. And there's a long length of time by month, right? So how do you put that together? It's just something that you go in and you say, okay, months by product, but then it's missing another piece, which is which customer. Okay, so now you put customer and then you put product and then you're missing the time. So sometimes if you're trying to map multiple data sets into one cohesive view, you're not sure how to format that. And sometimes I find that not knowing how to use double columns to represent a heading, and you can just merge this one and put another one on top. I'll show you in a minute. But just being able to think through, how do I represent this in an easy way without them having to go to different tabs? And over here, I see one thing, then the next tab, I see something different. I can't get the full picture. Trying to give your audience the best, clearest, cleanest, most concise picture is a skill that you as a BA have to dominate and do it well, because this is going to make you invaluable. When they're confused and you can show them something, but you show it to them so concisely, so completely, and has all the stuff in one view, they don't have to be jumping around to make sense of it, you're going to be well known. You're going to be loved for it. Okay, so knowing what format to use is important. Other challenges that BAs have is not knowing how to make it digestible, easy to follow. I cannot tell you how much times I've looked at documents that BAs produce, and I'm like, who did they make this for? Were they trying to compete with how complicated they can make it? Were they trying to impress their audience by making it so, wild and hard to follow that they are needed to explain it? My philosophy is, if I can give you something you can understand on your own without me, I won, right? Make it simple. Stop trying to be as complicated. Stop trying to be impressing people because they're like, wow, how fancy is this thing? How can you make it simpler is the goal, right? So lots of times it's too wordy. Lots of times the Excel sheet goes on and on. You're scrolling, you can't get to the end. There's so many columns. The columns go into QQ, VV, goes into double letters because it's just so much stuff. And I agree that maybe when you output something, let's say you're outputting from a database, you might get a lot of data. But it is your job to make sense of it and concise it and show what's relevant, because nobody can consume 13,000 rows of data? Like nobody. So how do you make sense of it? And then you put that on an overview page and give the overall overview. And then if they want to drill down, then you can make them drill down into the raw data. So just knowing how to do those things, I find that young BAs struggle. Not knowing how to combine different data in Excel. So for example, for me, sometimes I have different Jira boards. I have a project on this Jira board, and there are some tickets I need to make sure I call out. And I export those because I need to present this to another team that doesn't have access to Jira. So I export it out of Jira from this project. I go to another project, export that. Now I have 2 files, right? But the team I'm talking to, it doesn't matter to them it's 2 different files. They want to know the overall outcome of the project, whether it's on 2 different Jira projects or 2 different, it doesn't matter. So now you have to have the skill to say, okay, how do I take this data over here and this data over here, put them together and form a cohesive view of the entirety of the development that we're doing. A lot of BAs don't have that skill. They tend to just want to do things in separate buckets, and then it becomes hard to track, hard to present, hard to talk about, hard to find, and it's just not good. So we don't want to do that. We want to try to make things clear and easy and together consolidated as much as possible. And then the visualizations, like what type of visualization makes sense for this data? And I'll give you some examples in a few minutes. But I've seen BAs trying to show something in a bar chart that just became so hard to follow because there's so many bars, and then the words are too long, so they go slant. I can't read sideways, and it's a mess. Why are you forcing the data into a bar chart when it doesn't need to be a bar chart? Maybe a pie chart would have been better. Maybe a scatter chart would have been better. So how do you know what data visualization is best for the type of data that you have? It's another skill that you have to develop, right? And then how to present the information. So what I found too is that even if you figure out what document you're going to create, and then you figure out the formatting of this document in Excel, and then you made it easy to follow in Excel, and then you come up with the right visualizations, and then you were able to combine if you had multiple sources of data. You know where they fail? They fail in presenting it. And I was like, such a pity, because you did all this work, right? And then you just fell apart in the presentation, meaning when you now have to present it to the project team to say, this is the outcome of all of the work that we've done or work that you've done, or where you're going with the feature or whatever you need to present that came from the data set that you had, they sometimes, maybe because they're so close to building it, they sometimes don't pull out of the Excel the details that's needed for the presentation. In other words, the management team may not care about how you got here. They may not care about the rows and rows of data. They care about the end result that you came up with. So showing them the table doesn't help. Maybe you need to show them the graph that summarizes the table, right? Or maybe putting it in the right order. So we started here, then we went here. No, this is the end result, and this is the decision that I needed to make. Because you don't meet with executives just to have fun and to talk with them. Well, I do, like after work. Like I was in Montreal on Monday, and after work we went to dinner. And we had a wonderful dinner. We were talking. There was somebody that was there that we just hired who's from Haiti, but he didn't look Haitian. So we were talking, and he came out. He said, and this is a sidebar, he said that the food from Haiti is the most delicious food in the world. And I was like, what? No, because I'm Jamaican, right? I went, no, the food of Jamaica is the best. So we went at it, Caribbean War. So it was fun. But typically when you meet with exec, and by the way, lunch, dinner is sometimes meeting. So we make decisions, we make deals, we agree on things, we disagree on things, so we're working while we're even having dinner. So it doesn't stop. But typically in the office setting, when you go to a boardroom meeting and you're presenting, you're there because you want them to give you the thumbs up for something, the decision, go ahead with this plan or not, right? Or you want to inform them of a decision that you've made and see if they agree to continue down that path, right? So you normally don't meet executives just for fun. So being able to pull that presentation together to walk through the right way is very, very important and very, very helpful for you as a BA to become a successful professional, but also for you to add value to the team and help them to get to the point that you got them together in that room for. Most BAs, they end up doing all this work in Excel, and it's great work. And then they go to present, and they go far into the details that nobody cares about. They start pulling up the Excel and showing you the rows and data. We don't care about that detail. You are supposed to do that and tell us the outcome. We don't want to go through it with you. Tell us what you learned so we can, we have to be able to trust you that you know what you're doing. So that's where a lot of young BAs fall. So the types of projects that we use Excel on include these four. Implementation projects, and typically with implementation projects, we are doing gap analysis, like what those different systems have. We're doing maybe a list of the features, and we're making sure that whatever we implement, because this is a product that already exists, you're not building it, it's already there. Whatever we implement, it matches the business requirements. So we're doing that kind of mapping. For software build, we're building the whole thing in-house. We have all the things, right? We have gap analysis, we have product feature list, we have sometimes testing documentation, we have UAT, we have sometimes requirements, depending on if you're waterfall or not. There's all kinds of Excel documents that we create for that. I'm going to give you an example of a few. Software enhancement, where we're just improving some small part of an existing software. We typically don't always have a lot of Excel sheets for this unless we have something to discuss, but mainly it's like an estimation sheet, like how much effort is it going to take to make this change to whatever we already have, right? And then for data analysis and reporting, it's wild. It could be any data set that we want to use, and how we report on it and how we visualize the data to make it easy to consume is where it's at.